Hey man, I'm sorry the hours. It sucks to have to end it like that. I apologize. Instagram. It is what it is. So we're gonna have in-house in here for the next hour, and then we'll follow up with DNA. And what up, Alski? What up? I'm gonna put this back up there. Y'all know where to ask the questions. I will tell you guys this. You guys sort of asking questions in the comments right there is sort of hard to see. They go fast. So if you guys really want to get a question in, do me a favor. Hold on. I can't see. I don't know if you're back in here yet in-house, but do me a favor and hit the little question box. I'm trying to type this shit out. My bad. All right, here we go. So that's how you guys are going to ask your questions. Hit the little question box right down there. That little question mark right down there. Hit that. That's how you're going to ask your questions. We're going to have 1 hour. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll continue the conversation we just started. And then we'll get to your guys' questions. So, Romulin said, yeah, what up? Where's Jake at? Tell Jake I said what's up. Let me see what in-house coming back in. I don't know if he's come back in yet. I haven't seen him, so let me see. All right, well, we'll give him a minute to come back in. But if you guys have any questions at all, it is breeder night. We are going to talk about the reschedule. We're going to continue that conversation, but it's also going to give you guys a chance to ask about some things you might not normally be able to ask about. So, feel free. We'll get to all. I'll try to get to all the questions. We will have 1 hour. 1 hour. And then we'll finish out the last hour with DNA. So, let's see when Brandon comes back in. Let's get him in here. 6ers and 7, baby. Respect. What up? Yeah, 6ers and 7, baby. Hey, if you guys aren't following me, well, I'm sure y'all follow me, but you're not following in-house. I'm sure you already are. If you're not following Brandon Rust on both his accounts, give him a follow. And what else? We're just waiting. We need a second. We're just waiting now. We're waiting for Brandon to come back in. I will actually run and fill up coffee and be back in 30 seconds. So if Brandon comes back in, I'll be literally 30 seconds. I'm going to fill his coffee cup up. All right. I don't think we lost in-house, right? Where's in-house at? How long? We'll see how long. Man, I'll drink this. Yeah. For real.
Sorry about that. FedEx showed up. I had to load some stuff up.
Oh, you're good, man. I had to grab a cup of coffee anyway, so it was perfect.
Cup of coffee? Cup of coffee?
A cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee.
Okay. What's going down?
Not much. Yeah, man. I mean, same old. I figured we can get into what we were talking about a little bit already. Let them ask questions. The hour will fly by. It always does. And
yeah,
and maybe talk about One World, One Plan a little bit too.
So, yeah. So we got we got a lot of shit going on. So I doubt we could cover it in an hour, but we got a lot of cool things that's coming up. specifically for home growers, right? So what we're actually, there's a group of us that are putting together a thing that's going to be based around home growers. So, like, for instance, it's like anything. If you want to combat all the bullshit that's going on, you're going to be able to do that through by the home growers, supporting that whole culture, supporting that whole group of folks, right? So as an example, they you got a bunch of studies that are been accomplished. So there was recent study which you can find on the NIH website about ADHD and cannabis and the particular type of strains that are really effective when it comes to ADHD. So if that is something that you're affected by or that you're going through, that might be something you want to explore because one, we have a shortage of ADHD medication. Also, two, some people want to find an alternative to those pills, right? So getting that information out to people. So if, like, for instance, on that list was the strain that was popular about 8 years ago, like green crack, right? There was a lot of OG strains that were listed on there. Now, if you have that information and you can grow a little bit, right, then you're in good shape, right? So yeah, see, sativas work really great for ADHD. Yep. So it's really finding what works for you and then running with that, because if you find a solution, then you obviously you're winning, but you also have the flip side of that where they'll try to censor that information. The propaganda kicks in because what you're going to start seeing is you see it a little bit now where they're like, oh, black market weed is making people sick, right? And it's like, nah,
No.
That's not true. You might have issues that rise here and there, but also in the legal realm, you have a lot of material that's got a lot of aspergillus on it and everything else. Right? So, but it's also too. It's like ultimately you're finding your balance, and I think even with the Schedule 3 coming on, the impending changes, the way that you create a counterbalance to that is the people that will take the power in their own hands and either grow in a tent or grow a crop outdoors, and kind of get what they need for instead of instead of relying on somebody else or relying on say the pharmaceutical aspects, right? But yeah, it's one of those things that couldn't stress it enough. Is like the backbone of everything in innovation and all that is going to come and always be in the wheelhouse of home growers, right? Because they're the ones that are willing to take the chance. They're trying new things, and they're not really afraid to fail. Because if they fail, they'll just start over again and keep plugging along. Unlike, say, commercial farms or MSOs and like that, where in some cases they don't have the option to fail or don't have the option to skip a beat, etc., because it's gonna hurt them in the long run or whatever, So, but yeah, it's with the changes that are coming, it's going to be a pretty wild ride. You can only at this point you can only speculate, but
right.
As history tells you, anything that the government wants to be involved in, no matter what, it's going to be a shit show, and it's a pay-to-play situation. So whoever's paying them that's who gets to make the decisions, and we're not paying them. We only vote for them, so we don't really get to influence them on any sort of decision making.
No, not at all. And I am very curious to see. I mean, it is all speculation now, but some of the speculation is just common sense almost because them putting it as a 3 now, everything there you need a prescription for, right? So this is something that eventually will have to happen, or is this something that I'm just curious, how you see that?
So the way I see it is, so what you've got is you have this huge still presence of people that defied the law, right? Nobody gave a shit. Let's rewind 10 years ago. Let's rewind 20 years ago. Let's go back to 2004.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit whether it was legal or illegal because one, you're growing this plant, right? Where there's a community behind it. There's a lot that's going on in that frame of things, right? So a lot of those folks are still around, right? You know, that are in this and a part of this, right? So they're not afraid to take it back underground. So then let's fast forward 15 years, right? When Jeff Sessions 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was like, oh, we're going to come in and make these states, you know, abide and follow the rules of Schedule 1.
Right.
Everybody was like, sure, go ahead. We'll take it right back down underground. We have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the states goes, you're not messing up our tax revenue. So no, you're not going to do that. So it kind of fizzled out a little bit. Right. And then, but what is happening now is it's kind of like having anybody that's ever had like a parent, like an alcohol father, right? You know, it's like they just give you just a little bit enough to give you a little bit of hope, but they're still a piece of shit. And that's what's happening right now. It's half. Yeah, we're just a bunch of children of adult parents that are alcoholic adult parents, right? So when you see this, we've been beat down and the bar is so low that when you see the post, people call this progress. They call this a win. And you're just like, okay, is this a participation trophy generational thinking?
Right.
Or is this, is this really the thinking, because it's mind boggling in many senses, because you're like, it's like growing up, right? You get bullied, you might get pushed around, you might get punched, you might even get beat up by the bully, but it's a matter of time before that boomerang where you go back to that bully and you smack him in the fucking mouth and you let him know who's boss from there, at that point on, right? We just haven't done that as a country, as a populace, and let people know who's actually in charge or who's actually in control, and then we should be in control of our own destiny. But it's one of those things where it's like, are you giving up? How much are you giving up, to call this little minor win? In reality, if you really get down to the deep into the thick of it, it's just pandering, right? It's pandering because they're like, the current administration with Biden, they're losing votes left and right. They're getting hammered. So they need to, touch base on this sector where they can now come out and campaign, go, oh, we freed people with the pardon, and we got it rescheduled. Fuck rescheduling. It needs to be descheduled. The reason why they don't want to deschedule is because it opens up a huge can of worms. That means that the prison complex is going to lose a shit ton of money. But most of all, the pharmaceutical industry is going to lose billions, billions every quarter because of cannabis. That is what actually truly scares them, because everybody in this live, there's 100 people in here. We are all here because we all are growers. We know how to grow. We enjoy this plant, and also we have all the vast information at our fingertips, right? That is a threat to big business, like pharmaceutical, pharma, right? Or pharmaceutical. Yeah. But also too, we can't neglect the fact and the actual, fact that our country politicians are bought and paid for by these same lobbies and these individuals, right? And you can't sit there and blow smoke up my ass and say, oh, that's not true, right? And so, because if like they really wholesome about this, they would treat it like tomatoes, right? Which Ed Rosenthal made a great, paper on this. Sorry. A great paper on this, and I think it might even have been in his book. But also, too, you could classify it the same as tobacco and alcohol, which isn't on the schedule, right? Right. You could decriminalize overnight tomorrow, right? And let the market sort itself out. Let us, as a populace, sort this shit out, because it'll be capitalism, right, at its finest. Because if you got a good product, or if you got a good business ethic and a work ethic, you're going to succeed. Exactly. Right? Yeah. But yeah, that's but it's like anything. One where they're going to make the mistake, and the biggest mistake is cannabis should fall under the Department of Agriculture's purview, right? And any of the growers and all that, they don't want to do that because that's giving them up they're giving up control, right? And so they want to put it in policing agencies, which is going to be a disaster. So to put in perspective, there's 15,000 dispensaries out there, right, in retail. That's in addition to probably anywhere from 50 to 75,000 grows that's out there that's licensed across the country. You expect the DEA to monitor almost 100,000 businesses in the middle of a fentanyl crisis that they can't get under control, right? I mean, that's like piling on to them, where it's like I feel that they're better served on other major issues in this country, especially with that crisis. And so I think it's a disadvantage to them. I think it's a disadvantage to us. It's a disadvantage to everybody that's involved in this, as a whole. But whether we wake up or not will determine on which way this goes, and that's why I mentioned earlier is organization is critical. It's key, and it's not far-fetched to rally up 1 million people, right? Like think about it, like High Times, their social media page, they got like what, 5 million people, right? Even set that aside. Let's talk about it. Like you got some really good advocates in here. You got like say Bearded Bros, right? You got look at the stuff that you hold every Wednesday. You got 100 to 200 people coming in, listening to what people are saying on the regular, right? That's 200 people. You can 10x that, right? Now that's 20,000 people.
Definitely.
That some sort of message is might cover or get out there, right? You have you got the various like Skunk Magazine, right? Over there, right? You can sit here and we can name them all up. But my point is that if you could get these people, say, on some sort of like even playing field or conversation, then you can get progress, because what you're doing is you're getting concentrated information that's important to people, right? Important to these growers, important to these dispensaries owners, important to the home growers, all the way down the line. And that's how you end up getting action, right? And you got what you have is you have people working their ass off. Like we mentioned Brandon earlier, there's a lot of you folks out there that are doing it on a micro level, right? But the problem is that sometimes it feels like you're yelling in a void, because sometimes I feel like that too. I feel like I'm yelling in a void, and every once in a while, you hit something, but for the most part, it's just an echo, right? It's an echo chamber, and that's but also too, it's what you have inside. You're like, yeah, I'm still gonna get up the next day. I'm still gonna fight. I'm still gonna bring these topics up, because even if one person listens, then it's all worth it. But my main point is the time to actually, kind of come together and organize around this plant, because this plant is the only thing that has brought a mass of people together. And it doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your political affiliation, all that shit. It's inclusive to everybody. And if that starts coming together, you'll see the opposition and the discount, and you'll see people that will try to destroy that. Because one thing that they don't want, and especially like these agencies that want to, in these lobbies, what they don't want is they don't want people organized. They don't want people talking. They don't want people, it's like, here, we're going to hand this to you, and you're going to take it whether you like it or not. Go sit down, shut up and go sit down. Right? And but it's like it's like it's a combination of frustrating, but also too, I see a lot of help, because I got a lot of faith in people and people in general. Because like when I see stuff, like as an example, when I see these groups and some of these social media groups, like take like Tino, right? He's got a pretty good about 60 to 100 rabid fan base that is there. If they'll mean people to death, right? And they'll, if you come knocking on them, they'll mean me to death. Cannabis will drop a heater, right? And then the person that came knocking will back off and be like, yeah, fuck that, right? But when you take that as an example, and that micro scale of situation, and you amplify that as an example, why do we not have 50,000 comments on the Biden post about Schedule 3? It could be hashtag deschedule, hashtag decriminalization, and you fill that whole wall up, right? They fill up their whole comment section, and then when you see 50,000 comments of the same uniform comment, the news will pick that up. They'll go, well, why is this hashtag deschedule? Let's look into this. Why do people feel so passionate? But what it does on these politicians, it makes them take a second note because it goes, oh shit, we pissed off a lot of people with this, right? Yeah. And I haven't heard one person talk about, oh, rescheduling is the way to go. Every person that I've talked to, right, it says deschedule, decriminalization, right? The time that I've seen like reschedule is the hashtag MSO Gang, right? But we know why they want that, because they need that, right, in order to continue the monopolization of it, right? Because you got to have these security parameters in place, And but my point is if if somebody were to have an organization skill like that and put these folks together, and it's like, hey, let's let our voice be heard, let's let these people know, and it takes you 30 seconds to go drop a comment somewhere on a politician's page, they have an option. Either they're going to block you, right, or they're going to have to listen to you, And another example is like, when you look at the presidential election that's coming up, right? Yeah. You only have one candidate, which is Robert Kennedy. He's the only one that said, hey, we should decriminalize. And he's even said it that he would decriminalize day one. Now, his chance of winning are slim to none. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't bring a ton of support where one of the two other parties have to adopt that policy to get that support back their way. You see what I'm saying, right? So if he upticks 3%, 4% in the polls, right, the pundits and people are going to take a look at that and go, oh, that's off of the cannabis decriminalization? Okay, now let's adopt that. Because I watched that during the 2016 election. Do you think when I saw that Hillary started talking about Medicare for all and all that shit, that was because the pressure they were getting from the Sanders movement at that time, right? And I think what it is a lot of people don't necessarily recognize this or see this because they get into the semantics of they attack the person, you know what I mean, right? Like or the situation, and not look at it as an overall picture, And that's where I think where I'm in good fortune is because I kind of look at the whole picture. Don't have, you're not swinging one way or the other, because what I'll do is I'll take the person that's saying what they're saying and go, okay, I agree with that. I can support that. That's why when we post on here, we post from all over, right? It's because they're saying the right thing. Now, let's do our job and let's hold them to that. But the problem is if nobody's holding them truth to power, then they can say it and, do whatever they want, right? And that's where the frustrating part comes from is we don't have a say on how things are doing, because we don't have a loud enough voice or organized enough for them to even care, and it's like at some point, one or two things are going to happen. We'll be completely defeated, or we're going to push back and start making the things happen that need to happen in order for this to work out with everybody, right? Because this industry is a lot that can come out of it, because it's not just the cannabis. We're not just talking about cannabis here. We're also talking about hemp, right? Hemp could replace a lot of things that's, choking everything up. And also, in addition to that, it could bring a ton of jobs in manufacturing back to the United States, right? And so there's all this stuff that comes into it. But yet we focus on these bogus, endless wars that we're always getting ourselves into, and watching our jobs get shipped and away, watching this crazy, watching every time the Wall Street gets in trouble, they get bailed out, right? Like, one of the things that I saw that was really interesting that shows that people, when they come together, shit happens. And that was the GameStop thing, right? When the GameStop, I don't know the people that understand that story. Yeah. It was retail investors that are basically made fun of by the investment bankers and Wall Street, because it's not a non-factor. I think 11% of the market is made up of retail investors, and they ran GameStop up and was costing those hedge funds billions of dollars. Billions. Right? And what they did was they put their thumb on the scale and rigged it by getting rid of the buy button when that was shooting to the moon. Here's the thing. The problem was it was in a free fall. So every time somebody bought a stock that where they were so basically where they were over leveraged, you know, right? Because they shorted it. That
That's what
means
it
that
was. It was
yeah.
the
So
short. Yeah.
for every one stock that was purchased, they had $100 would cost that hedge fund 200, $300 because they had shorted it so much that there wasn't even enough shares for the amount that it was shorted. So basically, it was like kind of beat them at their own game. And what they ended up doing was they put the hand button. It was the buy button. You could sell it, but you couldn't buy it. And they put their thumb on the scale and told Robinhood, get rid of the button, take the button, you know, make it and disable it, you know, because we got to stop this. Because that would have taken, it took Melvin Capital out, right? That would have taken Citadel and some of the biggest brokerage firms. It would have taken them out of the game where they would have had to have another bailout, you know. But you know, it's one of those things where when I saw that, those type of things and those examples that I gave shows me that people are willing to fight. They just need to know where to go fight, right? Where to go and let their voice also be heard too, you know?
Yeah, and this, this is the perfect place to like be to start and bring people together to be able to like focus on things like that. Even like you said, like on the post, the hashtags, like to start something like that here, and let's actually go do it. I mean, the little things, all these little things actually do help, and we just need to figure out a way to bring enough people together to be able to make a difference. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, it's also too, it's like you got to have a good mix, right? But you also um, we got to kind of clean up as a little bit as a community, right? Recognize good work, recognize people. Like as an example, to me, I don't care if you like me personally or not, but you can't deny the shit that I'm saying isn't true, right? That it's not coming true, or there's things that like I said, you could disagree, you could hate somebody, but you can't sit there and say, oh, I'm not even going to listen to them, right? Because that's just being ignorant, right? So there's people that I don't really care for, but I have profound respect for what they're saying,
right.
right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I can agree with that. I can get behind that. I can support
Mhm.
that, right? And that's how it should be because we've lost this ability to agree to disagree and work on the shit that we can't agree on, right? And we're not
Yeah,
all friends here, right? We're not all business associates, right?
right.
But what we are is we're individuals and human beings that are doing the exact same thing. We are growing this fucking plant on the daily, every day. This has become a lifestyle. This has become our culture. This has become a lot to us, and
Mhm.
it's very important. And so it's almost kind of like it's like having, I guess, it's having this really precious thing, right? And you're just like, oh man, you're trying to protect it. You know what I mean? Right? And it's everybody. Like, here's the thing is like I said, if you're growing this plant, you're part of this community, right?
Yep.
If you're going to further this plant and its betterment, you are part of this community. You're always going to have these infightings. You're always going to have these issues. You're always going to have this stuff that's going to come up, right? Now you don't necessarily you can divide or you can separate the shit because it's a movement. You see what I'm saying, right? So you don't have to sign on or co-sign to everything that somebody does, right?
No.
To have a full understanding of like, oh, okay, we're on the same page, right? Because here's the thing: in the heat of war, right? The person next to you that's going to war, at that point, only thing you're concerned about is can they fight? You know what I mean? Right? Can they fight? Are they going to be there for you? Right? All the way through. Right? We'll deal with it. We'll deal with the details later. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
one of those things that to me is I think that people are ready to fight and we just start laying the groundwork for and directing them on for them to assess, is this worth fighting for? And when they come up when they go, yes, this is worth fighting for, then they sign on for this fight, and it comes back to that thing I mentioned. I've mentioned it a few times. Let's agree on 5 things. Let's work on 5 things, right? And at the top of that list should be decriminalization,
Hmm.
right? Decriminalization, which is a kind of in line with descheduling, right? That should be our number one priority. Everybody in this community, every influencer, That should be our number one priority, and then we start going down the list and that way, because right now, 115 people in here, there'd be maybe 2 people that might disagree on the fact that rescheduling or decriminalization is the proper right path to go moving forward.
I'd be surprised if there's even 2 people in here. I'm sure most of us, there has to be. I mean, yeah, I think we could all agree on that. I think we could all agree on that. And he's right. 5 things we can agree on. That's like us as Americans, even. We might hate each other. We might not like our neighbors or whoever. But guess what? If someone attacks us, we're all going to fight together. That's what we should do for this planet.
Yeah.
It's no different. So.
Yeah, well, think about it this, though. It's like some of us weren't alive or we were too young to remember 9/11, right? I was just becoming an adult at 9/11. And I can tell you that week after 9/11, I don't think I've ever seen that or ever will see that again. The fact of how so many people came together, and it was like this weird sense where everything took a break. Racism took a break. Religious creed took a break. Everything took a break because we were like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
Right? And
exactly.
And next thing you know, we're like, hey, we're pretty fragile. We're all in the same boat. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
Now, that week, right, went away and shit went back to normal. Then all the shit back behind it, right, came to follow through with it, and history dictates. But see, as an example, is you're using a small time where it was like something was like, it wasn't as major as it was or it used to be, right? And then you realize it's even like, imagine standing on the moon looking at Earth, right? Then you realize how fragile we actually really are, right? As and how insignificant we are, right? As but as a whole, it's a fucking amazing thing, right? As when you put it all together and you put all these ingredients together and this cake gets made, you're just like, man, this is a fucking amazing cake. This is an amazing situation,
That's it.
And that's just human and human nature. Yeah. And it's interesting because you'll use like, examples, or you'll bring something up and somebody will say, it'll pick out something that they didn't like in one little sliver that you said. And then they hyper focus on that.
Always.
You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean. So
yeah. And so it's kind of interesting. But for the masses though, and the people out there that take the time to listen, and the thing is I really appreciate the support and the people that take the time and listen, and they, whether they've learned something or not. Also too, I love when people hit me up and they're like, hey, I think you're wrong on this. They go explain it to me on how I'm wrong. And I'm like, okay, I can see where your argument is. Okay, now I need to take a little bit closer look. And all it did was shift on how my outlook is, right? I didn't say, hey, fuck you, I know everything or anything like that. I like that feedback. You know what I mean? I like hearing other people's perspectives, right? And, like I said, even if I don't agree with you, I'm still going to learn something from you, or at least try to learn something from you,
Or understand, at least understand where you're coming from. Like, I'm the same, like, I have no problem. Like, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong too. If someone's going to show me a different way or show me a better way or explain and take the time, all about it. So, and going back to the whole other thing, like, just the easiest way to say it is we're stronger together. We are stronger together than divided, and this is what we should do. We should come together as often as we can.
You're a clear picture of that. Every Wednesday, 100 to 200 people come in here and they feel welcomed. They're enjoying the conversation. They're expanding on that conversation. And a lot of them will learn something from what somebody had said and then relay that information to somebody else, right? That is a powerful tool. That is a really cool thing. And that's like, because like Oski and I were in Oklahoma, and it was funny because she had your live on and she's like, this is crazy. Like, he's got like 200 people in there. And I was like, that's a pretty regular thing. And I said, but also too, I remember back in the day, I would tune into him and he had 10 people in there, right? He's the same person as when he had 10 people in there to when he has 200. But where I really like, where I see is he goes, here's the platform for everybody. Say your truth, say whatever you're going to talk about and all that. We'll discuss it. We're going to go back and forth, right? And we're going to have a good time. And it's interactive with people, because not just what's going on the screen, there's people going and exchanging in the comments, all that. And so, I was like, watch, this is how it works, right? I said, he'll let anybody come in, because if you got something to contribute. So I hit the live button, right?
Yeah.
I was in there for a few minutes. We were talking about some really good stuff.
Yeah.
We were talking about home growers, and we were talking about stuff that's coming up, right? We threw some ideas out there, got out that live. And then Oski and I actually were sitting in the dispensary. We started actually working on the ideas that we were just got done talking about, right? How do we streamline this? How can we make this? And then how can we get this going? How can we got to get this going? And so it's like the conversations go a long way, and a lot of stuff gets break progress wise gets done in these type of conversations. And sometimes it's in private, but the vast majority of the time it's with an audience, right? Because you want to be able to bounce stuff off of an audience, because they're going to go, "That's stupid," or "Actually, that's a good idea," or whatever they want to feel about it. But it's a powerful thing. In when I see is like, because to me, there's no mystery on why there's 200 people in here, right? There's no mystery to me on the traction that you've gone and that you've made up, right? Is because you're bringing things that are helping people and bettering them, and not just bettering them, but also bettering their garden too.
I mean, that's what it's always been about. It really, we've had this conversation, man. Like, and I'm always going to be me. I don't know how else to be. I love the community. I love people. I always have, and I love the plant. And to be able to bring people like you and Brandon, whoever it is that week, man. There's so many everybody does it different. Everybody. There's no right way to grow. So, for all the new people, all the new growers, like all you guys that have been coming around. I appreciate you guys. You know that. All the new people that are in here, really, you guys are like especially the new growers. You guys are the most important people because, this is a place you guys can come and actually ask questions and learn. And we help, all we want to do is help you. So, I mean,
And what I like too is I like the full circle, right? And what I mean by that is there's people that just a couple years ago, they just hated the world and would troll everything and all that stuff. And then now they're completely different people, right? Or they've changed the way that they've done stuff. That's why I never really actually discount somebody or
yeah.
write somebody off, because I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know why you're lashing out. I don't know why you're mad at the world, right? All I ask is this: anybody that's mad at the world, that's going to troll or whatever, do it from your actual account. That way it's like genuine, right? As an example, Tino and I, we had a big ass road trip, right? And we were talking about accounts, right? And I go, I don't think I ever would really want like a troll account or, a burner account
Right.
without my name attached to it, because I want you to know what I said, right? Also, in addition to that, I want to, be held accountable for what is being said too, right? But if you got to hide behind a troll account, that says a lot about you as an individual. Now, not to say that you're not funny. It's not to say that there's like comedy and behind all that stuff, right? But it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to be malicious and go tear somebody down, right? Show your face, or let people know so they know who they're coming at. So that way you can actually, one, either have a conversation, right? Or if you don't like the person, don't follow them.
Don't.
Right? If you don't like me, if you don't like Chad, you don't like any of these people, just don't follow them, right?
Yeah.
Your problem is solved. But I also hold out the fact that people do change, people do evolve, right? And people they get into this place where I think once they feel like they're accepted, right, or there's like a spot for them, their whole attitude changes. And I've seen that before. I've seen that with a number of people. Like, I've seen the most craziest, funniest, wackiest fucking people that are still crazy, wacky, fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But they feel at home in certain situations, in certain places, and in certain groups, right? And they flourish, right? And I think that's where all it comes down to is this is a community that will accept all, right? And as long as you don't violate the community as a whole and and smear that trust, or lose that trust, right, you're going to be in great shape. And that's why I keep coming back is like, there's a lot of people out there doing really great work, right? And it's cool because I get to sit here and be fans of it and support it and let people know, like, oh, that's awesome. That's a really, really, it goes a long way to thumbs up somebody, or, hey man, what you're doing is really fucking good, right? Because what it is it's validating to give the person really like a kind of a check real quick, like, okay, what I am doing, I was questioning whether it was worth it or not. I'm pretty sure that you probably question, are these 3 hour long lives on Wednesday worth it? And you keep coming back, and then you get the reinforcement from the people in the comments, from your DMs, the outgoing support.
Yep.
Because look, lives in themselves to me are really hard to do because you put so much thought and energy into it. So I hand it to these folks, right, that are putting these 3 hour lives on, or 4 hours, and really keeping it, interactive and going, right? There's not really any sitting around or doing anything, quiet. It's always something going and moving. And
Yeah.
that takes a lot of work and a lot of energy to kind of maestro that, keep it going and all that, and so, yeah, but I know, like, if I put a live on for like an hour, it's like, damn,
It,
that hour was
y-
nuts,
y- yeah,
right?
man. The 3 hour. I tell everybody this all the time. Like, man, especially what like the pre getting ready for it. Yeah, you asked me. Someone asked me, do I get anxious a little bit?
Mhm.
It's hard. It's 115 people, sometimes 150, 200 people. And I mean, I get comfortable and I get into it, and I'm just that guy. I'm personal. I love to talk to these guys, and Wednesday nights are just great. But
Mhm.
there's that part where it's like, it's not the easiest thing to do to sit here for hours upon hours upon hours, but I love to do it,
Yeah.
so I keep doing it,
Well, it was interesting because I did a thing like a month back with Chad Westport, right? For you guys that don't know Chad Westport is a really, really great dude. He's got a podcast, home grower, really huge home grower advocate. And so we were doing it, basically the podcast and interview. But what ended up being is we're just sitting across from the screens, right? And we just started talking like it's just him and I, right? And then it was just a natural flow. Um, and then we blew through like 2 hours, right? And he's like, man, we got a ton more to cover, but he's like, this conversation's been great. So he ended up just putting it raw and uncut, the whole thing on there. And then YouTube actually, when he posted it the first time, they cut it off like 2/3 of the way
right?
through. And then he had to go where they cut it off and then put it back on there and then run it again. But we covered some serious topics throughout that. And so, but it's like folks like that, like Chad, right? And the work that he does and all
Yeah,
that. We need to see more of that. We need to support more of that. And what it does is it opens up other people to give them kind of the basically to shake off any of the weariness of going live or supporting that or making a post. There's a lot of hidden talent within these groups of people in this fellowship. There's a lot of hidden talent in there. And if something you do or something you say could pull that talent out of people and give them the confidence to show off their talent and show off what they can do, that's even better too,
yeah,
right? And it's amazing to see watching somebody basically blossom out and become, and then also too watching them grow, right? It's been cool to watch you grow over the past couple of years, right? From sitting there with the computer
yeah,
and some duck racing
right.
and they evolve. And the cool part is
Yeah,
we'll sit here probably more likely 5 years from now,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's only going to get stronger. It's only going to get better, right? And say, hey, man, remember, remember when you only had 100 people in here? You know what I mean,
yeah,
right?
man.
And
Yeah,
and it's like if they're not. Here's the thing: if they're not censoring you and they're not messing with you, good chance you're not doing what you're supposed to. Right? And but
yeah.
it's like but yeah, it's cool it's gonna be cool to watch, and it's cool to be fans of folks, right? And it technically, actually, it's cool to be fans of just ordinary people. You know what I mean, right? Like we're not sitting here idolizing.
No,
We're idolizing each other in a sense, and what I mean by that is
a
is we're seeing what you're doing and respecting it.
100%, bro. Like the respect goes both ways, and that's the cool thing. And almost going back to that, watching people grow and having people and giving them a platform, like me going out of the way to reach out to, like, I mean, not that it was like out of the way, but Alski, for instance, to have her come on and show her grow, like. I love to have, the whole women thing, to have some of these amazing women come through, such as Luna last week, for instance. Luna, these women that are just at the top of their game, being able to sit there and have conversations with them, going all the way to some of these home growers that have come on and just everybody else that's come through. it's just an amazing thing to be able to like showcase some of these people, and I'm fucking
And
happy to be able to do it.
and the interesting part about that really is like I like, for instance, showcasing women showcases, because we've done that in the past, right? And then uh what we've seen is people like, well, what about this or what about that? And it's like, okay, look, the numbers don't lie.
You
It's a
nailed it.
10% demographic,
That's
right?
why.
You know, it's a 10% demographic. You're choosing to take your platform to
Yeah.
showcase that, because that means that there's a reserved demographic there that doesn't necessarily want to show or come out, or don't really have the confidence to do so, right? But it's what it is it's one piece into a big old huge puzzle that you're putting together piece by piece by piece and making something really really great, you know. And that's where I think is you know, that it's got one of those things where it's the good with the bad, but also too, those type of situations are great, because it's like you're going to get another person that maybe on the fence about growing, right? Or, you know, be like, oh, I don't really want to get into that fray, and then all of a sudden get the confidence, like, okay, I'm gonna get a clone, or I'm gonna pop some seeds, I'm gonna bring it up. And nothing cooler than watching these guys, you know, these folks from the pictures, because right now I can say it's the best growers, right, are hands down the people that follow these pages,
Yeah.
right? Because the pictures, the content, and the work that they're putting in. Yeah. So like, I always stress to like all the people that I talk to as far as like farms, all that stuff. It's like, you don't have to look so far as to look into your following, because they've got great content, great people, and people that will help you with any sort of issue or any problem that you've got. And that's just, again, coming back full circle, is supporting people in what they're doing, because they're doing the same thing that you're doing, right? They're just doing it little different ways, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Um, I just wanted.
But yeah, I was cycling through some of the comments. But yeah, but I think the future, honestly, I think the future looks bright. I think the I think people are going to kind of start coming together, kind of recognizing that there is a lot at stake, and they really feel like they're you know being traumatized, right? But but yeah, I guess it's what perplexes me is I don't have necessarily the path, right, or the advice yet on how to go through it, right, or start the process,
Did you want to get this up? I think we all like. It really sucks to my out. It goes back to people reporting my account. Someone reported probably 2 weeks ago. My lives are cut down to an hour each. I know we only have probably 15 minutes left. There are some questions if you want to.
It tells you,
Maybe
right? Doesn't it
we'll
tell you
get
how much
some.
time you got left?
No, dude, mine's never. I tap on it says 4:16. Whatever the fuck. I have no idea. It'll say 4:16 the whole time, bro. It will not tell me how much time is left. But I think we started about 9:05, I think it was. So 10, 12 minutes. I mean, we'll see if these guys, we'll see if these guys come in. If not, I mean, we can go as long as we want. Really, what I wanted to do when I talked to you yesterday, I didn't know they were, I didn't know that I was going to talk. I was going to try to keep you for 2 hours, really, is what I was going to try to do. Because I knew we could sit here for 2 hours and just talk.
Well,
I knew we
another
could.
thing we can do too is if we need more time, we can always do a continuation next
All
Wednesday
right,
too. So
perfect.
just to kind of depends, because really, what we were kind of going back and forth and discussing was the schedule 3 and all that. But I kind of wanted to really take the time and kind of emphasis and make it about the people of this community, the people that are in here, the people that have just been killing it, with the work, and really put them on a pedestal, because because without them there's no us, and vice versa. It's a two-way street, and I can't emphasize this enough. Home growers are the path to everything. And what I mean by that is, like I said in the beginning of the life, innovation and, future progress in this, and that counterbalance, right? So that should be put first and foremost, and then, and really support that, and keep this intact, and keep these people together. And also too, we need to start getting on the on the tip of decriminalization, right?
Right.
And descheduling, right? And nobody there's nothing really good out of legalization. There's nothing good out of Schedule 3, you know. But also too, if say the powers that be, like the farmer lobby and all that, knew that, oh, we'll just take this bitch back underground. You can't censor all the information, right? You know, and people can make their own medicine at home. That's scary to a lot of situations, and that's be really hard because I don't know how to make a Vicodin, and I don't know how to make you know, anything like that. So. Right. But I can grow with the best of them, right? I have the understanding of the extraction methods, right? You know, so you do have the background and all that to make the change. And really, the change starts with you, me, and everybody in here, and so on and so on. And it sounds preachy, which is kind of frustrating. This is something that you necessarily should go without talking about because it should already be in place. But you also, at the same time, have to do a health check and kind of talk to people in a way that is on the, you know, so they understand we're all on the same level, you know.
And I think that was a big point we were trying to make to all you guys tonight. You know, together we are stronger. We
Yeah.
are stronger together. It's just that simple.
And so, yeah. So you got how many eagles does it take to violate a cowboy?
No, we're not talking about Eagles and Cowboys. No, Kenny, you out of here, bro. How
No,
about
Kenny Young. Yeah. So let's see. So again, I'll just start at
all right,
I'll start at the bottom. And so, can caregivers legally sell medicine now, or still seeking bags and taking donations? There's a couple of caregiver states that are still left out there. They have true caregiver programs, you know. Then you know, but Michigan's got a really, really good one. If you're looking for like actual like caregiver programs and how they're ran, a good example is Michigan. IP enrichment. We do a lot of beneficials. We start them off right in the beginning, at the very beginning. So that way it lives with the plant all the way through. So you don't have to necessarily, at that point, you don't have to use any much pesticides or insecticides, or in many cases, really at all. And then, as an example, the upside is like, how do you choose your strains? Actually, that's a big, huge process that is agonized over, and like we have whiteboards in our facility that that you're constantly switching around and going over. Like, in fact, I was in a conversation yesterday with another breeder, and we were kind of looking at kind of get a particular trait to come out of a couple of plants, and was kind of discussing. That's what the fun part is covering, going over it, and talking it extensively, because you get frustrated because you think that you got it, and then you look at it a different lens, or you come back to it the next day and you go, well, what the fuck was I thinking yesterday? You know. But the cool part is you're in a position to try multiple different things, take the best of that, and then put that out to the world, you know. But yeah, but it's like anything, you know, never stop growing, always progress, always keep forward, and also take note of your failures, and you know, and basically come back and you know, take that energy and it'll see you through, you know. And that's the thing is if you're not falling down, you're sitting on the, you know, you're sitting in the shallow end of the pool, you know, because we've had our fair share of failures and meltdowns and all that. And you know, I remember one that always stick out a couple of years ago. We had a complete malfunction of everything in the room, and it fried everything in that room. And some of the cuts that we will never get back, you're just like, whew. One thing that I'm pretty stoked about, as in the past couple of years, is being able to get a lot of the stuff through TC, and then been playing with suspended animation, and that's going to take a couple years to kind of figure out, right? To get kind of a balance on how long a suspended animation and TC and the temperature and all that, right? To where it's still viable, you know, down the line. So that way you can know how long can you hold it in TC before you have to transplant it, you know, and grow it back up and rebirth the cycle. But cool part is it's always a learning process, and you've got to take all the crazy ass information information you're going to get on the internet, and then come up with your own conclusion and your own path, which you're going to crash the car, driving that, and you're going to bang it off the wall back and forth. But it's the road that you're taking that you're going to get there, and not every road is that smooth. So, the cool part is we're starting to go into this shift now into the science of this plant. So we're starting to really fully understand the cannabinoid system and how it's truly, with our endocannabinoid in our bodies. I'm excited for that science, because where I think that the treatments, or I hate to say treatments, but better life for people is right inside those cannabinoids, because we got to see the journey of Rick Simpson's, which gave us Rick Simpson's oil, right? He chose not to lay down and take, no for an answer, and then there's the soccer moms from Georgia that were driving all the way across the country to get Charlotte's Web, to ease their children's seizures, right? There's just a couple people in situations that paved the way for this to be here. Another thing I'm really excited to start seeing is how the psilocybin is going to be incorporated in a lot of this. Especially when it comes to the brain and the cognitive aspect to us. As we get older, our memory gets shorter. It's harder to retain information. And I think psilocybin is going to bridge that gap for a lot of people. I think that we're in this weird state where a lot of the medication, a lot of stuff we take actually harms us in the long run, and but watching these things start to become a thing and become into the conversation is really absolutely really exciting, and I'm really fortunate and happy to be in those conversations, supporting those conversations, and watching those people do their work, right? And on top of it, watch their progress, and then be a fan of the progress that they're going to make. And I think one of the biggest, the solution, when you're talking solutions, I think solution is going to be in microdosing, right? Microdosing of psilocybin, and even cannabis into that, incorporating it into your diet, especially the CBD aspect, incorporating the CBG, which is phenomenal for the gut. For those people that don't know, CBG is doing wonders for people that are suffering from Crohn's. And this is now a proven fact, because Arena Pharmaceutics has a medication they developed that is pure CBG that they have and is waiting for approval, right? But the studies are showing the CBG helps Crohn's. So anybody that's ever dealt with Crohn's, or knows somebody that's dealt with that's dealing with Crohn's, or anybody that they know that has, they understand that. Just like anybody that has an understanding of if they have seizures or their kids have seizures, how CBD was a great thing to not rid them completely, but give them, weeks or months, in some cases years of relief of having to go through a seizure, and so, where the cool part is watching people start talking about this. Like, CBG wasn't a thing 2 years ago. It was, what I should say is, not very many people would bring it up. Now it's becoming more commonplace. People are now talking more about it, and now it's being discussed as, what's this hidden cannabinoid, right, that nobody knew about, right? And so that's where I think that, as those conversations continue to unfold, that's where I think the excitement is. That's why I don't think I'll ever get sick of, of everything that's going on, because even when it's dark, there's still light, that you get to look forward to, because somebody's going to say something, somebody's going to do something. There's a lot of these aspects that come into play, and I'll be the first to tell you is mad respect for everybody that takes the chance, that makes the choice to be better, to learn more, and then share that knowledge with the rest of the world, and that's what I try to do, is, in a sense, try to be a steward, in a sense, if I learn something and I feel, okay, I got the adequate information, then I'm going to relay it, right? I'm going to throw it out to the world. The nice part about it is the world's going to come back to me, and they can say, hey, you're somewhat right, or you are right, or this is where you're wrong. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to learn from that, but I'm going to learn more. But yeah, like when I was reading about psilocybin and just the shrooms
Yeah.
themselves and how they fucking create an interstate